Hello, all you beautiful souls. This is Amethyst, also known as Ashley Rose. And today I am joined by Leo Loptrson. Hey there, Leo.
Hey there, Ashley.
And can you tell everyone a little bit about your spiritual journey thus far?
Of course. So I was raised as a fundamentalist Christian. Then I became an atheist. And then later on in my teen years, I became a Luciferian.
When you jumped from Christianity to atheism, was there anything that was a catalyst there?
I learned about evolution and science, and nobody's ever taught me that.
And so you were an atheist, and then what started kind of pulling you towards Luciferianism?
I started researching a lot of philosophies, and Luciferianism stood out to me because it's all about the betterment of humanity and enlightenment in general.
Okay, so it's kind of like you went full circle almost, like from a philosophical standpoint. You went from, Christianity, which, like it's supposed to be the betterment, like in theory, it's supposed to be the betterment of humanity and people are supposed to have values and, it's supposed to be a humanitarian type of a religion. Then you became an atheist, and I find it interesting that you went to Luciferianism and found a better fit, with your more science-based mind. I think that's really cool. Did you find it was pretty easy to believe in science and evolution and all that as a Luciferian?
Yeah, it made it a lot easier, and it validated a lot of things.
Did your parents ever know about your Luciferian interests?
I tried to tell my mom, and she freaked out and was like, "My son's a Satanist. Oh God, he's evil." So it didn't go over well.
Oh no. Did you tell her that, it was a slightly different concept?
Yeah, I tried explaining it to the best of my abilities, but she didn't want to hear it.
Aw. So were you kind of ostracized for a while, or was it just that one initial reaction?
Well, she was an Aries, so she blew up and then just forgot about it.
That is kind of like typical Aries behavior. Yeah, because like fire signs tend to, blaze. I mean, you're Leo, obviously, because that's your first name. Yeah, I thought you were. Well, actually, I knew from previous conversations. But so anyway, it's like fire signs tend to kind of blow up and then cool down pretty quick. So that's definitely, especially Aries. It's like a love-hate thing because I'm a Scorpio. We're both ruled by Mars. So, okay, so you were on the Luciferian path, and then what made you kind of move in other directions?
I started researching a lot of mythologies around the world. I got into Greek mythology pretty hardcore, and that was pretty interesting for me. And then later on, I got into the Norse path. Okay,
and so when you were like researching and connecting to the Greek pantheon, did you connect with the deities as like literal forces, or was it more just like the stories?
For me at the time, it was a mixture of both, because I felt like there was some energy behind the story that resonated with me, but I wasn't into magic or anything at the time, so it was more logical based. So I'm like, oh, it's just a mythology, but there's always something subconsciously resonating with me.
How did you move from the Greek to the Norse pantheon, or was there any catalyst that took you towards the Norse path?
It sounds silly, but I'm on a Marth. I wanted to learn more about what they were talking about, and then I started researching the Norse mythologies when I was 21, and it just kind of spiraled from there.
Yeah, so for people who don't know who they are, it's a pagan band that's mainly Norse themed, correct?
Yes, it's melodic death metal. Who they talk about Thor and Odin, and all the.
Yeah, I've actually seen them in concert. They were opening for, I believe it was Suicidal Tendencies and Megadeth. And so I was like, oh, cool. And I didn't know that they were going to be playing because I don't even think they had them listed. And I was like, yes, because I knew who they were. I was like trying to find cool pagan music, and I found them because I love metal. And I'm, more towards the open spiritual path. And, I identify a lot of the times pagan.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like to put a label on myself, but yeah, they were pretty cool. I don't think most of the people understood the concepts they were singing about, though.
Nah, they don't. They're all about getting drunk and, doing stuff like that, so.
Well, a lot of our ancestors did that, They spent a lot of hard days getting drunk. They worked hard and they definitely played hard. But, so it was almost like your soul was being pulled towards the Norse path, even like before you knew it existed, by liking that band, and that kind of sparked your interest, right?
Oh, that's a very fair point. Yeah, I do agree with that, because I just randomly found them one day and then started researching Norse mythology, so that's interesting.
Yeah. I usually notice with people that they have like soul urges towards, either ancestral ties or past life ties, whatever culture they've been raised in or ancestry that they have. I notice that there's usually a soul urge that will connect them. So they'll be like shadows of things that are to come that lead them along their path. So after the Norse path, what did you get into?
Well, I stayed on that for a number of years, and I'm still into it, but not as heavily, because I know there's other things around that exist, magically speaking. So I got into Hermeticism a few years ago. I think it was 2017, actually. And I learned all about the laws of the universe and everything. And after that, I started to get into sigil work. And from sigil work, I got into the Goetia, where I am now.
So you kind of came full circle in a lot of ways, and you've kind of added things to your path along the way, but kept what you've left from previous path workings, would you say?
Essentially, I've basically just kept on grabbing at every other tradition to add to my own,
Mm-hmm. And that's what most true seekers do. They kind of create their own path. Not the path that's been laid before us by previous religions or, spiritual doctrines or whatever is not, valid, but it seems like a lot of seekers start to create their own path eventually, because they start looking and seeing that there's so much unity and oneness between all the different paths that they just, kind of pick and choose the things that work for them as an individual. Is there a certain deity that you work the most with?
Oh yeah, my boy Loki. We're tight.
What are some of the experiences that you've had with Loki?
That's a long subject. I'll try to keep it brief.
Yeah, just if you can name 2 or 3 brief encounters you've had with Loki. We can do another episode sometime about Loki specific, but I just want to kind of see your connection to him.
Well, to sum up our relationship, he will throw something at me, this circumstance, situation, or even a person at me, have it really do some damage to me, so he trips me, laughs at me, and then offers a hand to help me up. So it's always something like that. He's very hard to work with. I don't recommend people working with him off the bat, but he is friendly. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting to work with. He will basically make you see things in a lighter way, not to take yourself or really anyone else seriously in life in general. Don't take it so seriously. So he kind of just teaches you to have fun, essentially, like have fun with everything.
So he is pretty much a trickster god, correct?
Yeah, he's more of a general nuisance.
And he's highly connected to fire. Some people would even say that he's like the embodiment or he's like symbolic of fire energy, like that energetic current, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, his whole origin story is about lightning striking essentially a tree to cause fire, which is him. So he's very connected to fire, and I would go so far to say he's a fire god.
You know, we are going to be talking today about the first Hermetic principle of mentalism. One of the first things that, I mean, since we were just talking about Loki, do you think that the gods, you know, do you think that they are archetypes within the mind of the all?
Oh, absolutely. I feel as if all spirits and deities are, as more or less speaking, egregores, because everything is contained within the collective consciousness, the all, which is just pure consciousness. So if an egregore is a spirit made out of your consciousness, then different deities and spirits are made out of the all, the consciousness of it.
That's actually a very similar belief that I have. I do think that the gods and deities exist. I think that they're usually resonating and vibrating on different densities of consciousness. For example, we may have like the literal energy current of Freya showing up in the essence of the divine feminine within females. You know, I connect to Freya a lot. And so like within one density consciousness, she would show up actually literally within our own being. And then on another level, she's part of the all, like an actual energetic current that we can connect to, because all is mind. And when we really contemplate that, everything that we see or interact with is basically this projection from our subconscious mind, is what I believe it is. When they say everything, you know, all as within, so without, as above, so below, I believe that has to do with the subconscious projecting reality from the internal to the external, like a projector screen.
I agree with that entirely, and the universe is like holographic in itself, and there's been like a lot of talk about how your brain actually hallucinates your reality because it's just like a sensory organ, so it picks up all the different stimuli around it to produce what you're seeing. It's sort of, you know, reality itself is very subjective.
Yes, exactly. I've done experiments where I have simply intended, and this has to do with magic, I've simply intended that something happen and used the power of thought, and later on it happened. Like I've manifested cups of coffee just because I've intended that somebody would give me free coffees. Like, and it's interesting how the universe, because of it being mind and pure mental thought forms that we're putting out from our subconscious, it will reflect back whatever I want. It's really quite trippy when I've done these experiments. And I think that's what's happening with magic a lot of the time, is it's like forcing the consciousness to have a state change and then believe that this thing that shouldn't be possible with our rational mind is possible. But this whole principle of mentalism, that everything is mental, that the whole universe is mind, that the all is mind. When we think about that, literally, we are the master of our universe, and in a way, everyone is our mirror. And everyone will show up to us exactly as we've predetermined it through our subconscious mind. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do agree with that, and I will touch upon magic real quick about what you said, because the whole operation that you do is with your logical conscious mind to essentially drop a seed into your subconscious mind. Like, the whole ritual that you do and everything is all to get your subconscious on board with what your logical mind wants to do. So once you drop that seed into your subconscious, it projects outwards into the universe, the all, what have you, and you will manifest your intended desire or result. So with that being said, we're all creators because everything, it starts with the mind. Like, everything starts there. You can't do anything without it being a thought at first, and then you go and do something. Or when buildings are being planned out, that started as a thought and then becomes a building. So everything exists within your mind.
Yeah, and actually with quantum mechanics, they've even done studies on subatomic particles. They've shot them through these little slits in paper, and they've actually just used their mind. The scientists have used their mind to think that there should be an extra subatomic particle, and then somehow one will be created out of nowhere. It's like they'll shoot like 7 through there, and suddenly there'll be 8 just through the thought, just by thinking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's probably coming from, I don't know, a parallel reality, but it's manifesting from somewhere, but it's the thought that's inviting it in. And this is actually modern science. This is quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and it's been proven. This is like been a controlled study that they've done multiple times, and it's been reproduced where it will be a certain number, and they recreate it every single time just with the power of thought. It will change the outcome of how many little atomic particles end up hitting this little, they have like a quantum board that they use that's like very small. It's subatomic particles we're talking about. The fact that we can manifest something physically just with our thoughts, I mean, that gives me a lot of faith in the fact that my subconscious can basically manifest anything I want as long as I don't have a block.
Yeah. I mean, blockages are important to recognize because it's all subconscious. So if you're trying to manifest an intended result and you're not getting it, then there must be some sort of block.
We have an imaginal act. So just like with magic, I do more chaos magic. So I will have the imaginal act, and then I will drop the seed into my subconscious. And then for 2 weeks, I will only speak as if the thing had happened. And then that gives my subconscious 2 weeks to clear any blocks. So I'll be like, no, I intend, okay, for example, if I wanted to take flight, but I had flight anxiety, because this is actually something I did, I'd say, I don't care about my panic attacks. I intend that I'm going to be able to take a calm flight that I enjoy. And I intend that I am able to do this. And by saying I intend, you actually bypass any resistance that the conscious mind might put up, any blocks that the conscious mind might put up. And then you get straight to the subconscious, because the subconscious will just do whatever you say. The subconscious, or the conscious mind can kind of create blocks easier though. So we want to bypass that. And that's what magic oftentimes does, is we can bypass the conscious mind and move into the subconscious through using our tools and our focus.
Yes, that's very true. I mean, another important aspect of the subconscious, it doesn't know the difference between basically like don't and do. Like, it doesn't take in the account of, I suppose would be negatives. So if you say, I don't have anxiety, the only thing that your subconscious mind's going to recognize is I have anxiety. So you have to bypass that.
An I am statement is usually the strongest statement to create. When I have a lot of blocks with something, I'll say, I intend that I am. So that way it's going past the conscious mind and moving into the subconscious mind, since all is mental. However, you don't, even if you use I intend that I am, or I am, whichever way you choose to word it, you don't want to say, I intend that I am a person who you don't want to ever use negative statements with it, because yet again, like you were saying, the subconscious mind doesn't understand the difference between do and don't, because it only works with that. It just understands the simplified version of language, basically. So we want to state everything in the positive,
Yes.
basically, like what you want, not what you don't want.
I learned that with sigils, so yes, it's very true.
Does it ever trip you out to think that if the all is one, that you're simply interacting with projections from your subconscious, essentially? That really there's only one entity that exists?
It does give me a great amount of anxiety thinking about the fact that the illusion is separation and everyone is more or less speaking one. I mean, we are all one, but because of the illusion of separation, it's hard for a lot of people to see that.
Yeah.
Because we all come from the source of consciousness. So, yeah, we are all one, but we're essentially always interacting with mirrors of each other, and you can learn a lot from others, because if someone's acting in a negative manner, you can say, this person's reflecting back something about me.
Sometimes it can be a reflection of something that's within you that you're in denial of. Sometimes it can be a really obvious reflection of something that you hate about yourself. For example, I've interacted with people that are just overly aggressive, totally the antithesis of how I tend to show up in the world. I tend to be like really into getting along and trying to cultivate harmony. And then I somehow attract very aggressive people. And I've looked at that and I've thought, how is that a mirror of me? Like, what is inside me that I'm projecting out and having this really dirty, gross mirror of anger and aggression showing up? And I've thought, it must be an aspect of my emotions that I'm repressing. And so it shows up in the all. I'm projecting it out from my subconscious where I repress it. I'm projecting it out onto a mirror, which is a person, because everyone's basically a mirror. And then they're interacting with me and scaring me. So I guess when we contemplate these things, we can look at it and be like, oh, wow, I'm scared of my anger.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
Not always negative stuff. Obviously, people mirror our beauty and our love and our gratitude and our positive qualities, are the things we like and that we enjoy. Some of the closest connections I've ever had with people that were artists or spiritual people or people that were into nature, a lot of the things that I love about myself, it's like I interact with these people who are my divine mirror, and I'm like, everything I love about them is basically a reflection of myself. And I think, whoa, that's so beautiful. And then it helps me to appreciate the divine mirror, the energetic person that I'm interacting with, that may in some ways be, like you said, would it be a holograph?
Yeah, like basically like a hologram.
A hologram, yeah. Okay. So they'd be basically a hologram that I'm interacting with, according to this principle of mentalism. I think one of the questions that comes up is, what is the point of all of this within the all? Did the creator just decide that they got bored and so they needed to create billions and billions of different versions of themselves so that they could interact with themselves and learn more about what it means to exist?
I believe so. I mean, you can't see yourself without a mirror in real life. So if you want to pretend that you are the all source, whatever you want to call it, I'll call it the all because we're talking about Hermetics. So if you want to pretend that you are the all, you have to look at yourself through a mirror to actually see yourself. It's a way to better understand who you are as a person, essentially.
Do you believe that there are parallel multiverses and that each person is essentially the master of their reality and every event, including like global events, would be projections from their subconscious mind. I know that was like a pretty deep concept, but we are talking about the principle of mentalism. We're diving deep.
Yeah. I can't say it because it's probably copyright claims, but that's funny to me. So I do believe in the dimension theory and parallel realities and all that. And it could actually be argued that everyone is having their own parallel reality right now. Like every single individual in this timeline is having their own parallel universes because reality is subjective. So my timeline could be different than your timeline. And, it's kind of trippy to think about. Yeah. But I do believe that there's there's other me's and other levels.
I don't want to go dualistic with it, but I think when I've really pondered this quantum theory and this Hermetic principle of mentalism, there's really, when it comes to parallel realities, there's only two main ways that it makes sense to me that it could show up. Either everything is just literally like the one observer and then the observed. So it would be like the all would be within your subconscious, and then everything you see is a mirror of you, and you're the only one that exists. And there literally is just one being that exists, and everything's an illusion until you see that it's Maya, and then you ascend, and then you're like, oh, okay, I was God the whole time. So there's that one. Or there's parallel realities where each person is basically the master of their multiverse. And then there would be countless plethoras of you and countless plethoras of me, because each person would manifest me as a different mirror, and I would manifest each person in my life as a different mirror. In some timelines I would be married to certain people or have a certain amount of children or siblings or whatever. Same thing for everybody else. So I tend to believe more that, we each do actually exist, but in our consciousness, we are the only one that truly is master of our reality, if that makes any sense. Then everyone is literally a mirror of us. So in my reality, I'm the one that actually, and then in your reality, you're the one that actually exists. And for everyone else, it's the same thing. It's a very deep concept, but it's like once people get it, it really makes sense to them. But it takes a while to really digest it because, it's a lot to take in that you're literally responsible for every single thing that happens in your life. Your thoughts are creating your reality.
That's interesting when you think about global events.
Yeah, even the global events. In this theory, everything would be a mirror of some aspect of your subconscious or conscious mind.
That is pretty trippy to think about. It's like my favorite principle for that reason, and it's definitely the reason why it's the first one. You can't move on to the other ones without knowing that it is a mental universe that we live in. And I noticed that lately, at least, because I've been stopping my vices and everything, so I'm more focused. So lately, I can manifest things quite quickly. And if my thoughts are more erratic, things happen and things go the way I don't want it to go. And I'm like, I need to start monitoring thoughts. And I learned about this principle when I was 9 because I was into the whole psychic abilities and everything. And I was on this forum, and the tagline on top was thoughts go where thoughts go where energy flows. So it got me thinking that thoughts are energy because we are energy. So you're putting that out to something, and something's responding to it.
Actually, you manifested me looking at the Kybalion right as you said that, and I happened to be open to page 62. It says literally, there's no such thing as matter, that what we call matter is merely interrupted energy or force, that is, energy or force at a low rate of vibration. As a recent writer said, matter has melted into mystery. even material science has abandoned the theory of matter and now rests on the basis of energy. Yeah, I just happened to be on that page with the book open. I wasn't even planning on reading that, but then you mentioned that specific topic. And I mean, this is copyright 1912, something like that. Yeah, and the fact that they knew about all this before quantum physics was really even an idea. And science just keeps supporting it more and more. And I think it's because if all is one, as I believe it is, science has no choice but to start supporting these spiritual truths.
Well, science has been doing nothing but supporting Hermetics because this is a very ancient topic and it's a more or less universal truth because the ancient Egyptians were the ones that, were all into this because it's the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and then it's also known as Hermes Trismegistus. He's the one that, did all this, like wrote it down and everything, but Thoth and Hermes are known to be the same entities. But yeah, science is just backing up very ancient concepts.
We look at cycles of time, which, I mean, this is only talking on a third density of consciousness, which is the basic egoic consciousness of the average human soul that we interact with. Very ego-based. Third density consciousness, we have these cycles of time. Once we go up to fourth and fifth density of consciousness, we're in the fifth dimension, which all time is one, and we have that realization of that. We're still stuck in the third and fourth dimension, where we live by the material, everything's real slow. We look at everything and it's real dense. But then when we go higher, and we live by space-time rules, but even quantum mechanics is starting to support that the present and the future are both part of the now. So what we're realizing is, the Earth itself is moving in to fourth density consciousness, and people are moving into that, and fifth dimensional space-time, basically, which is the eternal now. Like, all past, all future, all possibilities are all part of the now. It's a pretty trippy thing to think about when you really ponder it.
Yeah, it really is.
I don't know how good trippy. I mean, I like using that term because I don't have any other words.
Well, it's all really trippy, yeah. But the age of Aquarius, I think that's the reason why this is all happening, and the reason why everyone's having this spiritual awakening, because we're slowly moving into the age of Aquarius. So people are waking up.
It's the dawning of the age of Aquarius. I think we actually will be in the age of Aquarius around 2125 is what some people say. Other people said 2012. But regardless, the dawning started around the year 1700, but it was like the pre-dawn. And that's when we had a lot of revolutions around the planet, and people moving towards revolutions with the French Revolution and, the American Revolution. Because that's the Aquarian energy, is breaking down old structures, even if it's just mental structures, and understanding things from a more cosmic, not to sound cliche, but a cosmic space.
Yeah. And like the whole 2012 thing is, what made me laugh is everyone thought it was the apocalypse just because the calendar ended at 2012. But apocalypse is just like another way of revealing things that are hidden. So it's more of an esoteric concept.
As they said the world was going to end and time was going to stop. And so I was chanting this mantra because I was in my emotional pain body and residing in fear way too much. And so I think I was chanting to Krishna. When I went into the gnosis with what 2012 stood for, to me, it really stood for the end of time as linear time, as these old, really rigid constructs and ideas of linear, strict time that just goes forward. It's like, no, well, we have cyclical time. We can move into this concept that actually time is a cycle. It's like a spiral. We need to connect with that ancient wisdom, which is also future wisdom, because all resides within the now. also look at the fact that with the eternal now, if we are to get away from this concept of time, we can connect more with the all and really move into the fact that we are creators of our reality, because time is basically an illusion. You know, quantum mechanics is starting to move towards that also. And I believe 2012 was kind of the gateway towards that realization. Before 2012, it was a little bit less accessible for your average soul on the planet to receive the gnosis.
Well, the ancients always known about it because the symbol of the Ouroboros is the symbol of life and death, the perpetual cycle. But the more esoteric concept is that everything is a cycle, especially time. So who's to say that we aren't doing everything all over again? Let's say that the whole entire universe ended and then it restarted itself, and then we're playing everything else over again. So that's also a theory about the universe that scientists are actually looking up. And I remember that was actually a Futurama episode. It's one of my favorite ideas because it would also lead some credence to reincarnation.
Yeah, the universe would be doing the same cyclical thing that we're doing, the same cycle. It would just be in a macro rather than a micro way.
Yes, exactly.
Today we covered the first Hermetic principle of mentalism. I, of course, want to have you on again. So I want to say thank you very much, Leo, for doing this episode with me. We'll plan on doing a few based on maybe some of the old Norse gods and have you on again to talk about another Hermetic principle. I hope to do a series on the Hermetic principles. And how can people find you or find your channel?
Find me on YouTube by looking up Leo Furfur, and my name is Leo Loptrson. I basically talk about the more obscure goetic spirits to give them more recognition. So it's the first one that'll pop up.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure to talk about these concepts with you, and you helped me to actually gain some insights. So that's always nice to have somebody who kind of inspires me and helps me in that way. I want to thank everyone for listening today, and I hope that this information was helpful on some level. And if you want to reach me, you can find me on Facebook by searching Amethyst Heart, AMETHYST space HEART. Again, that's Amethyst Heart. Love, peace, and blessings to all.